Welcome to the Ashes to Intimacy podcast, and today we have two guests, Sabrina and Amy, coming from California and from Nevada. We'd love to chat about how these beautiful coaches were able to use the 6 intimacy skills to transform their marriages, and now they transform other people's marriages as well. And we have some beautiful stories to tell, and just a basic outline of how these ladies' lives have transformed using the Laura Doyle 6 intimacy skills as Laura Doyle certified relationship coaches. So who would like to step up for? Okay, awesome. Sabrina, she's ready. All right, Sabrina, tell us a bit about what happened, how it was before you learned the 6 intimacy skills.
Excellent question, Tegan. Before the skills, I was very focused on all the things my husband was doing wrong. I could list them for you. We went to 4 different couples therapists. I would tell the couples therapist the things he was doing wrong. They would agree with me. They would give us assignments. I would remind him that he hadn't done his part of the assignment. I would come and report to the coach, to the couples therapist the following week that he hadn't done his assignment. I'd take notes on all the things he did wrong during the week. I'd read the notes in the session. I mean, it was just very, very focused on his wrongs and how I was right and I was so willing, and why wasn't he?
Oh, it sounds like it was you were trying to get him to step up and to be the man you expected him to be, and that was really hard on you because on both of you, because there's so much complaining. It sounds like, and you took the notes and you're like, well, this is the evidence, and you pointed out that evidence, and it was very clear to you that all he had to do was change, and then if he changed, then you would be happy. Yeah, did I hear that right?
That sounded like the right formula to me.
I know, isn't that always the formula?
Yeah.
That's what I thought too. I'm 4 different therapists too. Oh man, I know that feeling. You're like, and it's just a complaint fest, and if I can just get him to do it, then it would work. And then I guess he probably felt criticized, and you were like, this makes sense though. If you just do it, is it that hard? And for some reason, it just was harder than it should have been, as in therapy. Whereas in coaching here, we do a completely different methodology. So tell me a little bit more about, is there anything specific that you can share? Like what was like one of the lowest moments, or something that you want to share on this podcast? There was like a really hard moment maybe that really made you like, this isn't working.
Sure. Say that in our last couples therapist, and this was after I had read The Surrendered Wife. I can't remember what year I read it, but I knew that I resonated with a lot of stuff, and I could see the fact that this female therapist and I were ganging up on my husband. I could see how detrimental that was.
Oh.
And so I would say a moment that I recall, there's 2 things. One, I did really question, and this is a Laura Doyle kind of thing, like, how do I even know if this therapist has a good relationship? And I think I did ask her, and I think she did. But I had that question.
Yeah.
And also, I would say the most painful moment was she gave us each a session alone in the whatever year that we saw her. She would periodically have us do a session with her alone. And she asked why I was even trying when it was obvious he wasn't trying as hard as I was. And so why didn't I just give up? And I'll tell you, Dagan, that made me mad. I did not like somebody telling me to give up. And I said, I believe in marriage, and I think, that we can do this and work on this. And because that COVID happened, and we had just been seeing her a couple times online after the COVID thing, it was really easy to tell my husband, I don't think we're going back. He had no fight about it. But that wasn't our bottom as a couple. Our bottom as a couple did happen after COVID had already passed, because we had a huge disagreement around how to raise our kid during the COVID times. And that was our true bottom. And I think his disrespect for my differing opinion was so intense, he moved downstairs.
Oh, okay. So basically, so you were at the therapist and you realized there was like this moment where like, I don't think he's really benefiting from this. And you felt like maybe the therapist was a little bit more on your side, which, normally would have made you feel good. But then you're like, you kind of had compassion for him because you're like, well, I actually would rather it would be, more fair where, I'm like being also working on myself, right? And then she's like, oh, but clearly he's not working as hard as you are and he can't keep up, so why do you keep trying? And you're like, because I believe in marriage and I think that it's worth fighting for. And I really love that. That's so beautiful, that moment where you get to understand that. And then I guess that kind of like led you to Laura because she stands up for marriage, so that's awesome
I
later
had
on.
already found the book, but
Uh-huh.
the unique thing about the Laura Doyle community, of which
Uh-huh.
Megan, I know you have a similar mindset in your coaching,
Mhm.
is we stand for marriage, and it doesn't matter what other people think of your marriage. Because what
Yes.
I found was she was judging us. She judged us as I guess broken, and I really didn't like her judgment, because what I think is cool is like I can choose my marriage even with all of its problems and
Yeah.
still stand for it. And that is the unique gift of the Laura Doyle community, even
Okay.
when, you know, even when there's things that people could call dysfunctional or whatever.
Okay. So you already had the book, so you kind of had that mindset a bit, it sounds like. You already kind of were like ready for this way of thinking. Still were going to the therapist, hoping that would help. And when it didn't help, then that's when you decided that maybe something else should change. And then also in 2020, when COVID happened and you were trying to raise your daughter at home,
Yeah.
that was really hard because now you're like, how do we parent? And now you're both trying to parent and you're trying to be the best version of parenting and you have difference of opinion on how to do that. So then
Yeah.
there was like, and then he moved downstairs and that was really hard on you.
That was the bottom of the bottom, my friend. I didn't ask for it. He did.
Oh, that's really hard. I'm sorry to hear that. When did things start to shift and what did that look like when things started to shift?
Okay, so the first shift was in August 15th. I wrote it in my calendar of 2021. Um, the first, I signed up for Ridiculously Happy Wife program,
Mhm.
and my first call, I realized that not all these women were obsessed with COVID like I was. I guess I was obsessed. I just went, wow, these people are having like full on, like they're really preoccupied with their relationship. They're not like fighting about COVID and politics. And I was really like surprised because all my husband and I did was fight about COVID and politics. So I was like, wow, isn't it neat? There's like this whole community of people who don't fight about COVID and politics. No, but that was in 21.
Uh-huh.
It really did humble me that people were so invested in trying to be better people themselves in the
Mhm.
relationship. And that
Oh,
is truly the LD signature gift challenge unique thing is the unilateral ability to work on oneself, in my case, work on myself whether he does anything or not. And that is really both unique and extremely empowering because he had moved downstairs. It's not like he was saying he even wanted to work on it. So it
oh,
was the unilateral application of the skills.
wow. So there was a completely different mentality in this whole community. You're like, why is everybody not fighting about COVID and politics? And you're like, what the heck? These people are like more accountable and they're more like
Yeah.
feminine. It sounds like they're more like, oh,
Yes.
how can I gain the power back? And it's using these feminine skills, right? Because they're all a group of women. So
Yeah.
it's so beautiful that you had this community of support, and it completely transformed your viewpoint. It seems like, and you're like started to do the little mini shifts. Like, how did that feel to you? Like, what?
I think you nailed it with the feminine. I was extremely oriented toward being right. And I guess that's a masculine trait.
Yeah.
Wow. Wait a second. There's people who are, and you know what's funny is in my thousands of calls, which I've since attended, there are
Yeah.
other people like me who are obsessed with being right. And I can see when they're doing it, I see how that gets in their own way, right? So
Yeah.
before, I didn't realize I was getting in my own way. I really thought his wrongness was what was in my way, you know?
Oh yeah, and it's so disempowering, right? That being wrong is there's no power there. You have no power, right? So once
There's
you start to take back that power, which was what can I do, right? How can I be a better version of me? You're like, oh, actually, there was this like kind of mindset shift, right? Where you're like, uh, why have I been trying to control him when I could just be accountable? And
yeah,
then that way you can really just have that inner strength, right? That
yeah.
strength that you get from being accountable. So was there a story you can tell us that where it
I
was like really
yeah,
helped?
my funny story is I gave him a ton of gratitudes, 3 a day, 60 for his 60th birthday. Like I did all the things and none of it landed. So I think that's actually funny and it could be
Huh.
inspiring for other women where it didn't
Yeah.
land on their husbands either. Paying more attention to my self-care definitely had immediate effects for the good. I remember that I joined um like fully all in diamond in
Mhm.
January of 22. And I remember
Uh-huh.
Martin Luther King Jr. Day, I took a walk in the rain and I felt like I was 10 years old. You know, like I
Oh.
kind of slid a little bit in the mud. I was like out in the
Mhm.
rain. I was laughing, just a
Mhm.
very clear sense memory of understanding that self-care is about doing stuff that makes my spirit feel really good and alive and like, you know, like feeling like 10 years old again. And that
Oh.
it's so worth investing time and money in. I don't mean money like to do the self-care, it was a walk, but
Mhm.
like to be in this program that supports that kind of behavior.
Oh, wow. So it sounds like you did the gratitudes, and it didn't land the way you expected it to. He didn't seem to receive the gratitude that you gave him, even though you gave him 60 gratitudes and then
You know,
daily gratitudes.
to get on his paper, I think he's a bad receiver, but hey, that's not my thing.
You're like, he didn't seem to be able to receive at that time, at least. And he's a bad, like, it just feels like a negative SOP. But then when you start to really take care of yourself, so that's why you're the self care queen, right? That's what Coach Sabrina, she's the self care queen. She's always out there taking care of herself, just loving on herself, connecting to herself spiritually, which is a very divine feminine trait. And I
Yeah.
really advocate for that. And you're just felt like you're 10 again. And when you said that, I felt it. I'm getting goosebumps right now because because I could feel what you were talking about, because you're really connecting with your young spiritual, your spirit, rather than symptoms of your life, the things that are going wrong. You're really just connecting with Sabrina. Who is Sabrina? Like, you're really in tune with her and her spiritual self. And I can't imagine that the love that must have been surrounding you at that time when you're really doing that self-care, that spiritual love and that support that you're receiving. And so that was a really big inspiration. I love that you told us that story. How did that make a difference for you in your marriage?
I think just having these, using my five senses self-cares really kept me feeling spiritually and physically held for the remainder of the time it took until we have gotten closer. And that took, I'm going to be frank and honest, it took like a year and a half, you
A
know?
year. Okay. So
Like
it held you over to
it
to
took,
nurture yourself? Is that what you're saying? Okay.
yeah, like I feel like one thing I've mastered, gotten really good at, share with the women I work with is that you can unilaterally feel spiritually held and physically held by really good self-care when you are not feeling spiritually and physically held in relationship. That's what I would say is
Mm,
the gift of that painfully long time of separation with my husband.
yeah. So it sounds like you hoped that you had this connection with him,
Yeah,
and you didn't, and you
right,
used to have this expectation that he would step up and be this kind of man, that
right.
this divine masculine, more like present,
Yeah.
like nurturing man that you hoped he would be, and he didn't
Uh-huh.
step up to that
Mhm.
right away. Since then you've seen more connection, but back then it took a while. And I remember walking through that with you, and it was a long process, and it was very discouraging. There was
Yeah.
times when you never wanted to give up, but you were really discouraged, and it was really hard for you over that period of time. And then but the self-care was really like it's just it made you realize that you could connect
Hmm.
spiritually
Uh-huh.
with God and with yourself and your
Uh-huh.
spiritual essence,
Uh-huh.
and the spiritual presence is around us all the time, and just feel that love and really take care of yourself, it sounds like. Was there like a moment where things started to shift, like where you felt like you were connected to your husband again more?
Mentally, my coach Dagan, at a certain point, helped me when I was despairing of, I don't know if we're ever going to reconnect. You said to keep an evidence list journal of ways I do see that my husband loves me. And that helped mentally realize, though he wasn't trying to hug me, though he wasn't trying to kiss me, though he wasn't trying, those other forms of physical intimacy, I saw
Yeah.
acts of love and service.
Oh.
Did help me with that.
Uh-huh.
And then I'm just going to be frank, this is my story. When he was down,
Yeah.
when he kind of hit bottom in his life,
Yeah.
that is when he finally became more open and willing to receive from me in terms of becoming quite physically closer, with physical intimacy.
Oh.
I think. And
Oh.
I think he was so armored against me too because of we really mistrusted one another's thinking. It was like that's our story breakdown.
Yeah. So it sounds like there was so much distrust between the two of you because of the arguments and the mistrust. Like you just didn't believe in each other
Yeah,
and didn't trust each other to make decisions
yeah,
and to really like love on each other and just to like, and so there's this battle. And so there was armor, it
yeah.
sounds like. And you felt like
Uh,
your husband's armor was impenetrable for a while. With your best efforts and working on yourself, but you didn't really see the full
yeah,
results until he began to soften from his own traumatic events in his life. And then he
got
opened
it.
up to you more, and then he was able to receive your love and your
Yeah.
intimacy and your connection, best vision of you. So he took down that armor a bit, and then
Mhm.
you probably felt victorious, and that helped you become
Yeah,
closer to him too. This sounds like, yeah.
you got it. And we're still there. We're still in that age. So, learning, always learning.
I know it's a lifelong learning process. We're not we always have to be challenged every day so we can grow stronger and stronger in these beautiful skills that we learn. So I'm glad that we're still working on it for the rest of our lives. I wish there was a time where we just overcome it and then it would just be done. But we can safely say there's lots of happiness that we can have. I love that story. That's awesome. Anything else you'd love to share?
Yes. That
Okay.
last thing you just said.
Uh-huh.
I think that I was misled for a long time, probably about a year and a half. And I could have been part of what got in my own way. I really did think that, like, people who went on the podcast, some of the
Mm-hmm.
people that shared on the calls, I thought they found, like, I thought like some magic thing happened where they fixed their relationship. And I kind of had believed in one and done, like that they would
Mm-hmm.
have this alchemy and they wouldn't. I didn't realize you'd go sometimes back and forth, sometimes it would
Mm-hmm.
get really hard again, sometimes, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So that was a misconception. So I'm really actually glad that you pointed it out because I call it kind of my happily ever after illusion. I kind of thought like, oh, I'm going to learn this secret and I'm just going to have this happily ever after thing. And I do think that that's just an illusion. So I'm glad you brought that up because life
Okay.
is always changing. Things
Yeah.
happen. We can't
Yeah.
control these things. And
Oh.
so it's better for me, and for the women who I would want to work with,
Yeah.
know that what I'm equipped with is skills for no matter what goes on, for me to continue to try to show up my best self, take the best care of myself, and have tools to correct myself when I'm off the beam, which I was off the beam for a little while this morning and for like 4 hours yesterday. So.
I love that even though it's an inspiring story, you also recognize that it goes has its ups and downs, and being aware that it has its ups and downs makes it so that your expectations can shift, and then you can have success and feel like you're successful
Yeah,
as a beautiful woman and as a wife and as a coach, just to be feel successful even if the success doesn't meet your original expectations of this perfect, everything's perfect
yeah,
fairy tale. And
yes.
it was there like, what is your most fairy tale moment, do you think, that you've experienced so far in
Um,
since you learned the skills?
My most fairy tale moment. I don't know if I have fairy. Maybe I'm too cynical of a person to have a fairy tale moment, but I really enjoy good physical intimacy, and
Yeah.
I had
Uh-huh.
that.
Oh.
And I really enjoy, I would say fairy tale, more like a rom-com. I wouldn't even, maybe just a com, not even a rom-com, is all of us laughing. My husband, myself, my daughter.
Oh.
Laughter to me is like, lightness and laughter is a
Uh-huh.
feeling of just spiritual elevation for me. And
Oh, wow.
PI is a different form of elevation, which I love also. So those are
Oh,
probably my most elevated moments that have to do with other people, is either the laughing or the PI. And then
wow.
by myself, I can achieve all of those things with really good self-care, the feeling of elevation, you know?
The elevation. Okay, so when the expectations aren't met, you can do really good self care,
Yeah.
and then lower those expectations a bit so that there you can celebrate more of the victories, which are like comedy. I know you're really funny. You guys like to laugh, and all three of you is so adorable. That's I'd say that's a fairy tale moment. Like,
Thanks.
if you were in a movie and at that moment when you guys, if you had a camera on you and you're all laughing, and it would be a romantic moment. It would be a very beautiful,
Yeah.
um, elevated moment, and then of course the intimacy that we're missing for a long time felt like an eternity, right? Where you
Yeah.
now you have that PI. And what would you say to somebody who's experiencing a lack of PI, a lack of intimacy, sexual intimacy in their relationships, if they're listening? What would you
Mhm.
tell them?
Two things. One, the tip you gave me on keeping the evidence journal of seeing acts of love.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard other women who have gone through long stretches just like me say that seeing the acts of love really, really, really helps.
Mm-hmm.
And two, well, three things. Two, letting go of timeline, because I think that that's probably the hardest thing in life, is that I can't control timeline. I can't control timeline
Mm-hmm.
for so many things, and I daily find it frustrating. Things that have nothing to do with my husband. I have a magic wand and control timeline. That would probably be the thing I would try to control, right? Like,
Yeah.
like I need $10,000 now. Like I'd love to control timeline, and then
Uh-huh.
but I can't, so I have to remind myself of that daily. And then three, finding really good physical self-care
Uh-huh.
in the meantime while one waits, because like I know you're a nature lover like me, Dagan. If
Mhm.
I hadn't had like great body surfing, go to the beach,
Mhm.
I love a scalding hot shower or bath. I mean, I need those things to feel that held feeling, you know? So finding something like that that makes, to this day, on my favorite walk, I feel like, even if I don't directly hug the trees, though I have
Yeah.
occasionally, I feel like the plant life is like hugging me, just like walking,
Um,
like that 3D kind of thing. Like
yeah.
it's just so real, like it's holding me. I'm being held by, the nature. So
Oh, that's so beautiful. That's such a beautiful meditative practice. And I just love that you felt held by like nature. I feel the exact same way. Just you can feel this spiritual energy around you, and that's always you have access to, but you have to be in that space to really absorb it, that receiving kind of place. So that's really beautiful. So the timeline. So just waiting, and in the waiting, you had this beautiful opportunity to connect. And so you probably wouldn't have had that opportunity if you didn't have to wait you as much. So in a way, it's kind of like this blessing that's in disguise, that you had to wait and you just had to love on yourself and nurture yourself. And I'm sure when you got back and you were talking to your husband, there was a lot more, you were a lot more present with him than you would have been if you were angry.
I, maybe not, but hey, at least while I was outside, I was really, really connected and enjoying myself.
Awesome. I love that. I'm sure it did transfer. You probably didn't notice, but
Yeah.
I'm sure it did. Oh yeah. So waiting on the timeline, and then just doing really good self care. You obviously were a safe place for him. You must have become a safe place for him.
Yeah. I do use the mantra whenever we're in bed together I tell myself, receive, receive, receive. I say it quietly in my head.
Yeah.
I'm loath to say it as like a magic wand tool though, because when it doesn't work, I don't want to get mad, you know?
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you
But
just
at
try to
least
do
I
it as a
tell
mantra.
myself that because I am such an aggressive person by nature, and this has been a problem in every relationship I've been in.
Uh-huh.
It's better for me to use the mantra receive, receive, and be quietly disappointed if it doesn't happen than
Yeah.
to be as aggressive as I used to be and then be really angry when it didn't happen. So,
Oh,
I'd rather
yeah.
be quietly disappointed than I used to be so mean and say things. Can I just admit it? We're on a podcast.
Yeah.
It's like, if you don't want to have sex with me, I'll find someone who does,
Yeah. Yeah.
to say. So,
I know. Yeah, I know that feeling, that angry feeling. And yeah,
yeah,
I'm glad that you admitted it, because the truth is that we don't act very dignified when we're upset like that.
right.
We can pretend we're like so nice, but we say mean things when we're hurt, right?
Yes.
And you felt hurt, and then you said the mean thing, and then it disconnects you further.
Yep.
So instead of allowing that anger to come through, you're trying to prevent the anger, and I'm sure you had lots of success, even though maybe you don't give yourself credit. There was probably like so many times where you didn't say something that could have been really hurtful, and where you were like laying in bed and just trying to be soft
Yeah.
and sweet and
Yeah.
feminine and smiling instead of disappointed. And I
Yeah.
know the feeling, because it's like, why is he not doing what he's supposed to be doing as a man? Right.
Yes.
And so you're like, I can be the man. And you don't realize that you're doing that. You don't realize, yeah, I can take charge. I know how to be a man. And he clearly doesn't know how to be a man. So I'll be the man. And so I love that you're like, no, actually, I'm going to be the receiving feminine woman, and I have to be patient.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to be patient, because all of us three coaches here on this call love to make sure that things happen. That's how we are. And we're very ambitious. And so we have a really hard time with waiting on our husbands when they don't behave the way we think they should. And it's a very common problem. So most likely, if you're a woman and you're watching this podcast, that you probably have had some similar challenges, and being accountable and realizing that you're not always nice. And
Right.
you could be doing things, you probably are, that are
Yeah.
hurtful, right? So I
Yeah.
love that. I love that that willingness to talk about this thing that is so hard to talk about, like so hard to say, hey, I did something that wasn't nice. And
Yeah.
that's beautiful that you're able to do that. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. Is there anything else you wanted to share?
No, you asked great questions. I think that I have shared my stuff. So,
Awesome. If anybody wants to hear from Sabrina, we're going to add a link underneath this video where you can have a chat with Coach Sabrina, and she can help you with your struggles, your intimacy problems, or whatever it is that's leading you to feel this disconnect. She can work on any issues, but she does tend to specialize in
the self-care, and there's the PI problem, and I have a background in addiction too, so I'm really good with that. If you or your spouse or your significant other has struggles with addiction, have a lot of experience in that as well.
Coach Sabrina. She's your girl. If you have any addiction problems, or if you're dealing with addiction with your husband, she's got some amazing skills to teach, and a very beautiful coach. So go ahead and schedule a call with her, and we'll provide the link underneath.